Well, I've not done a lot of things. So the question is, when do I have any wisdom about when not to do something? And well, I don't think I have any wisdom on that anyone else. It looks like a room full of sensible people, and you probably can, you've had a lot of opportunities to say no, and in particular, being head of a foundation, you really need to know how to say no because if you well, anyway, I was going to tell a joke, but but I won't. Okay, my thoughts on the hedge fund industry today. Do I think it's working right, or I think it's or what's right or what's wrong? Well, there are a lot of hedge funds today. When I started this, there were a lot fewer. A hedge fund, for those of you who don't know what they are, is a fund that people invest in. The managers charge a percentage of the profits, typically, let's say 20%, and a fixed fee, maybe 1 or 2%, and they manage the money, and you hopefully benefit from it. Hedge funds have ebbed and flowed. Ebbed and flowed. I don't know what the word is. They've waxed and waned. They've got better and they've got worse. They go through periods where they seem to be doing all very well. The last 2 years, hedge funds have not done very well, but the markets have. One of the things that's good about some hedge funds buy and sell things, and they go long and they go short. You need a certain amount of volatility to make that work. If nothing's really moving, then it's hard to make money. There's a lot of competition in hedge funds. There's an awful lot of them today. So I think probably as a whole industry, it's not as successful as perhaps it was when there were fewer. But there are certainly some good hedge funds, and they come in all stripes. Our fund, as I've told you, was 100% systematic, and there aren't very many of those, but there are some, and a few of them are good. But there are many that have other policies and do fundamental trading, and it's a range of approaches. So. On these collaborative, goal-driven things, well, it's not our only focus. It's shaping up to be about a third of what we'll do, of what we're doing, and it's not there yet. I find it challenging and enjoyable. It's our autism project, which is certainly goal-driven and is collaborative. Has shown me, this is a pretty good way to make progress, and I like working with people, and I like seeing people working together. So you have to be careful. You understand that the goal may be far off, but if they're making progress, like this Origins of Life, I mean, I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to know the answer, which is really what's a completely plausible path, let's say, to RNA or something like that. From first principles, how do we get to that? On the other hand, I see them making some really nice progress, and how this chemical came to in existence or that. And they're also looking at exoplanets and seeing, and they can look at atmospheres of exoplanets and see what planets might have atmospheres that would be conducive to life. So a lot of science will get done. And gradually, we'll eventually maybe we'll find the answer. So I like that approach. It's not the only approach. Most of the money we give out in mathematics is to individual researchers and so on, and all those people who held up their hands are individuals. But I like that. Okay, that's a good question. The question is at Renaissance, where the algorithms that they develop and the ideas are very proprietary and not, you can't patent them or copyright them because people would just take it over and you just be in lawsuits all the time. The question is, if we're developing this kind of new science, would we have any wish to sort of share it with the general public in some sense or other? And the answer is no. No, but that's not meant as a joke. There isn't anything that these guys have done that of such generality and power that it's a shame that the world doesn't know it. It's a very powerful group of people who can focus on data and get some very good results. But there's nothing but so general that it would really need to be shared with the world, as far as I know. Yes. When I was a kid, how did my parents help foster my mathematical knowledge? That's the question. And the answer is they didn't. I mean, they thought I was a good kid, and they were glad I liked school, but I don't think they said, this boy is going to be a mathematician or anything like that. So I wasn't pushed in any direction whatsoever, except to do my homework. I was not a good homework doer. In fact, I hated doing my homework. Yes. Okay. The question is, what are my thoughts on math education in America? And my thoughts are it needs to be better, as probably most of you realize. So kind of the background. I got interested in this because when I went to Berkeley to be a graduate student, I was the beneficiary of a National Defense Education Act fellowship. Now, only the old folks here have probably ever heard of the National Defense Education Act, but when Sputnik went up in 1957, the whole country went into spasm. And the Congress said, oh, my God, the Russians are going to beat us. They'll be on the moon throwing Butker at us soon. We can't get our satellites up. They got theirs up. We need to strengthen the scientific enterprise in the United States. And they did. They created the National Defense Education Act. They beefed up the National Science Foundation. When I got because I quarrel with John about this, but I'm going to give the statistic anyway. When I got my PhD in 1961, I think there were fewer than 100 people in the United States, certainly 100 Americans, who got PhDs in mathematics. 10 years later, there were 1,400. Now, 100 was too few. 1,400, we didn't know what to do with them because, there weren't enough academic jobs. But and in other professions, other scientific areas, this was similar. There was a lot of growth. And we saw a national problem, Cold War, and we were going to solve it through building up our science. And we did. We did a marvelous job of building up science. Salaries went up in universities for those kind of folks, and a lot of people came in to science, young people, and it was a great success. So about 15 years ago, I looked around, maybe more than 15 years, but and I realized that the teaching math, I was only focusing on math, in our schools was really not very good. And I realized, like we all do, that the economy is becoming far more quantitative than it used to be 40 or 50 years ago. And more of things are based on quantitative methods, and we're not really keeping up. Our teachers, by and large, don't know, in particular in math, I think, the subject very well. Because if you know enough math to be a good high school teacher, and that means you know college math and something so that you're not just one step ahead of the kids, if you know that much math and you have the least mental agility, which you'll see in a second, I don't have, you know how to program a computer, you can go to work for Google, you can go to work for Microsoft, you can go to work for Apple. I have an Apple fellow right here in front of me. And you're going to get paid twice as much, and so on. So what's to keep someone who actually knows the field in the profession? Well, you might really like teaching, and that's great. But the pull out, so something needed to be done to make the job of teaching math, and in fact math and science, more attractive, so that we would educate our kids better and be able to compete in the world. And so I said, okay, I have a program, I know what to do. A friend of mine, or a guy who became my friend, Senator Schumer, had just been elected. And part of the reason he was elected is because I gave him $250 or whatever it was. Anyway, I was a supporter of Senator Schumer. I probably was a little more. But it wasn't some huge amount, but I had a party for him and became a friend. And as soon as he got elected, I went right to Washington. I said, here's an idea. You got to do this. And I said, create this program, reward people who give teachers a test. If they pass the test, you give them money, and they'll be rewarded, and they'll stay in the schools, and people will be drawn into the field because they're going to get an extra stipend from the government, like the National Defense Education Act. He said, that's a great idea. I'll get right on it. And as I left his office, another group went in about, something about dams on the beaches of Long Island, and I heard him say, so that's a great idea, I'll get right on it. I'm exaggerating slightly, but only slightly. So he didn't get right on it. We had a few conversations about it, but nothing was going to happen as a federal program. And so a few years went by, and then actually MSRI was kind of in the picture because we had a poker tournament to benefit MSRI. David hooked me up with a few people in New York who were also in the financial business. I don't know where you found those guys. And we sat together. How can we benefit MSRI? And one of the guys was a poker player, and they were talking, and I said, hey, I like poker. I said, why don't we have a charity poker tournament? And we did. And it worked extremely well, and MSRI got the benefit. But I thought, well, if we're going to do this every year in New York, it better be something that really relates more to New York, because I'm not going to get these guys coming out every year to give money to MSRI, which is in California, and for math research. I don't know how we talked them into it the first time, but so then I thought, okay, maybe this is the time to start this program here in the city and just do it ourselves. And so we did, and we had the tournament every year, and that raised some money, and of course I provided a great deal of it on top of that. And so that the program was started privately. 2 years ago, the state of New York took on to do the same program outside the city as we're doing in the city, and they're building up. We have 800 teachers of now math and science in New York City. Next year it'll be 1,000, and that will be 10% of the math and science teachers in New York will be part of this core of really knowledgeable, committed teachers. They all get extra stipends and so on, and the state's doing the same thing. And we're hoping that other states in the country will take on. The federal government is in a state of paralysis, and it's probably better to work through states. But it's a long haul. That's a very long answer. I'm sorry.